My name is Greg Olson. I am the Regional Director for the SEWN program. The SEWN program is a PA-funded job-saving organization and working with companies that are in some level of transition or facing business challenges. We are not only about job saving for current jobs, but future jobs. And the future job saving effort was initiated around technology, advanced technology particularly, and its effect on businesses in our region and how some of our clients have done things to address that need, how to address their needs locally and to move the organization into the competitive environment of the 2020s. So today I'm joined by Peter Rapp of Johnson Matthey, and Peter is site leader at that organization. And I will ask Peter to kind of talk about his background a little bit and about his organization, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Good day, everybody. Peter Rapp. I'm the site manager here at Johnson Matthey in West Whiteland. I've been with the company over 3 years. I've been in the manufacturing industry for over 35 plus years. I've worked for companies like Merit Medical, GE Healthcare, Surgical Specialties, Vital Signs, Johnson & Johnson, 3 different divisions. I've been in quality, I've been in manufacturing, and I've been leading sites the last dozen years. So it's my pleasure today to kind of give you some insight as to how we've tackled some of these issues that we're currently faced with.
Good, Peter. And I think, to start out with, and the organization you're currently with is a global corporation, and that provides opportunity and challenges, and particularly challenges around how you get what you need and how it fits with what the global direction is. So if you could talk to that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Johnson Matthey, we're a global company. There's 5 different divisions within the organization. There's clean air, efficient natural resources, health, new markets, and battery materials. We're in the efficient natural resource division, and with that, I'm in the precious group metal services area. And that in the efficient natural resources, there's 16 manufacturing sites, over 3,400 people globally. So there's a lot of activities with the global organization. There's a lot of good systems in place and a good sharing of ideas across the different sectors. One of the things that we did when we started looking at the Industry 4.0 is started to benchmark with some other divisions locally here and even internationally to kind of determine where are our next steps as a global organization, where do we want to be, and what can we do as a site. And so it took us some time to really start to dig into it, even though it's a global company. Each division is a little different. There really isn't a lot of similarities other than the systems, procedures, and through the organization and the structure. So everybody does things a little differently. Everybody has some different systems. So it was kind of a unique challenge from that standpoint. But we reached out to a lot of the manufacturing excellence folks to see what they were doing in terms of this, and really started to try to get our hands around the internal benchmarking part of it. And I think that's the advantage for a bigger company. We could tap into a lot of those resources and start to understand how do we take this whole process, this whole system, this whole technology and make it our own.
Peter, we had talked, one of the decisions in the corporation was to kind of really focus on IT and kind of push to the back burner a lot of the things around the Industry 4.0 and things like that. So how's that working?
Good question, Greg. So, JM is a 200-year-old company. And our site, we have some very long legacy systems. I think our MRP system is something that I used back in the mid 80s. So the corporation recognizes that we really have to be, from an IT standpoint, really have to be a global leader in that aspect. But to change overnight, it just takes time. So, there's definitely a lot of good focus in on that over the last couple of years, and we're playing a bit of catch up too. So, our struggle right now is how do we take some of these legacy systems that we currently have in place, and how do we modernize them? How do we get that information out? And so, there's a lot of efforts from the IT group on just upgrading systems, going to the cloud. We're using Microsoft Teams. That's been a real blessing because we implemented that just right before the pandemic. And that has been, since people are working from home, that has been a huge advantage for us. So we recognize a lot of the platforms that we need to do. And it's just a matter of timing and funding and trying to really move that forward. But for us as a smaller site, we probably don't get the resources and attention that we need, but we need to figure out how do we get better in that. And so we started looking at a lot of different aspects and systems, which I can talk to later.
And now, when you looked at your organization, and that kind of thing, and saying, okay, you're not getting all the resource support you need for the technology changes. How did you look at your organization to see what was working and what wasn't working and what needed attention?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, most of our information was manual. And again, the systems we had were very outdated. So we started taking a look at how do we get the data, and then how do we automate the data so we can start making good decisions. So we started with a proof of concept. We put in some andon lights into our medical tube area and use the Worma software, which is a free software. We buy the andon lights from them for a very minimal investment. We were able to put a system in place to start to track downtime, changeover time, machine issues, quality, productivity, and really get good OEE numbers for us. And then we were able to start to take a look at that and start to drill into, okay, why is it taking us too long for a changeover? Do we need some new tooling? How do we tackle some of these things? So with that proof of concept and in that one department, we saw over a 200% improvement in terms of ROI, and our productivity started going up. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So now that we were measuring it, we were starting to manage it, and we were starting to bring in some of the lean tools to identify how we get better. And so once we did that, we were able to then go into a platform called Tableau. And Tableau is kind of like a dashboard system. So we said, okay, can we add this to Tableau to start to track it? And so we were able to do that. And one of the things we did last year was we kicked off kind of our internal project. After we did some internal benchmarking, we also did some external benchmarking through AME, Association of Manufacturing Excellence. This is pre-COVID, where we were allowed to actually go out and see some places and to see what other companies were doing. And then from there, we kind of realized that we needed to, JM was rolling out Tableau. So we got in real early on as much as possible, and we're a complete advocate of it. So then we kind of listed out, what were the true KPIs we wanted to measure, your on-time delivery, your quality, your productivity, for us, our inventory, our working capital. So we started just going department by department, and now we've got some really good dashboards that give us information that beforehand would take us hours to get on the shop floor to get all that. So we're just going through and department by department. It's worked out really well. It's really given us a good tool for us. The other thing I think has been helpful is it's really helped our tier 1 and tier 2 huddles. So each morning, each shift, the supervisors meet with the department and go through the KPIs. And then at 9 o'clock, the management team, supervisors, planning, quality, commercial teams, we review the day, the previous day and what we have to ship out. And we go through the KPIs of safety, quality, productivity, inventory. And so those tools have been so invaluable to us this last year. Really helped us propel in terms of our continuous improvement and just getting to that next step on the Industry 4.0 journey.
How did you gather all the data? I mean, how did you roadmap that, or how did you put all together, all this stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, we formed a team, kind of a project team, and really started to identify what we wanted to go after. We've got a number of individuals. We have a CI engineer. We've been very fortunate that JM has a graduate rotation program where individuals spend 8 months at different JM facilities and work on projects. So we've had a couple of graduates, and these are very sharp, individuals right out of school that, um, computers are, it's like, oh, you want that form, formed? Oh, I can put that formula in, I can do that. And it's like, okay, here's what I want. Can you do this for me? And just go and do it. And it's unbelievable, the work they do. And then we have another individual who kind of handles or manages all of our data. So we put the team together, and then we kind of prioritized our task as to what we want to do. And what's interesting is we're always evolving, always changing, always looking at saying, well, maybe we can tweak this a little bit. Can we get this information? Can we do that? And we're finding ways to really learn and do the system, and really create the information for the people on the floor and the management team, the supervisors, planners, schedules, quality. So we'll be able to pull that information in, and it's really helped us. It's been really a good year for us that way.
How do you communicate this to your workforce? And how do you?
Yeah, anytime there's a change, there's emotional experience on the workforce floor. So I think the key for us is explain the why. Why are we doing this? So when we did the proof of concept in the medical tube area, of course, there was some skepticism with some of the folks, like, this isn't going to work, that's not going to work. And then, the people on the floor identified some problem areas for themselves, some things that weren't working for them. And one of them was in the tooling area. And so we put together a team to tackle that. And they, of course, the reaction was, that's not going to work. We tried that for years. It's not going to do any good. And, we heard all the negative comments, but then got their input, started getting them to help with the system, and put in a Kanban system for some of our tools, which was visual and with automatic forms, so they controlled their own destiny on what they needed to run the product. And it's been successful. It's been in place now for several months, and it's seamless. And we don't run out of tools. We don't run out of issues. And it's a visual system. So the guys on the floor understand it. They see it, and it works. And that's been a nice success story. So those are the type of things that we want to tackle. What are the obstacles in their way, and how can we work together to get it and move forward? We want to make it so their job is easier. They're not looking for a tool for 2 hours. It's easier to do these things. So I think those type of wins will help us gain further in the future, and we need to do more of those.
Sounds like you've implemented some of the tenets of lean manufacturing into the process.
Yeah, we've been on the journey since I joined the company. We've gone through what's called the Winning Teams program, and that's through the DVRC, Delaware Valley Industrial Resource Center. So we actually have done 3 versions of that. And what that really entails is a project, a team associated, giving them some of the tools to, basic lean tools of kata, 5S, continuous improvement, problem solving, those type of things to really help them move that. We start our next session, our 4th session next week. We kick it off. And what we're doing differently there is really creating 5 value stream teams, and having those teams go through the process, create the current state, create the future state, and go through the process from start to finish, and then work with everybody involved in those processes to get the ideas to start to tackle the improvements. A lot of times it's the small little incremental improvements that are really going to propel you forward. Things that may take some capital expenditures, the things we want to look at in the future, we'll add them to the list, but they may go on a parking lot for maybe next year or the following year. But we want to tackle that. So we're really excited about that. I mean, I think that's going to be good. It's just really going to the shop floor, the Gemba, with the teams, getting the information, getting the input from the people that actually do the product, gathering all of that stuff, and then taking a look at how we get better. Obviously, we want to reduce our lead times, improve our quality, improve our on-time delivery, reduce our inventories. Those are things that, those are our standard KPIs that, have become second nature to us.
You talk a little bit, it sounds like you really have a good handle on all the going down into the organization. How are you reporting all this up to the top part of the organization?
So monthly, I have a business unit review. So that, we go through all the metrics for that. It's myself, finance, and commercial team, commercial directors that we meet and review that with the upper management. So we'll go through all the basic, safety, quality, on-time delivery, our OEE metrics, anything else of any topic that may come up that we have to do a deep dive on. So we review that monthly with the upper management, and that's actually been a nice system. Obviously, pre-COVID, we were doing it face-to-face. So now it's all via Teams, but I think it's worked out pretty well. We have a standard format that, all the sites are using, so it's pretty standard, and we go through all the key aspects, the sales data, the financial data, the operational data. And I think that's worked out real well. I think we have a really good rigor with that as an organization.
Peter, do you think you'll be able to incorporate the organization in technology change the same way you've done with the process changes?
I think so, Greg. It's going to take some time. And I think that, I look back on the last year and we made a tremendous amount of progress in a lot of areas. And I think for us, the next thing for us is really connecting all the equipment. And most of the stuff that we do is a lot of it's manual, but there's aspects that we can do to take that manual data and make it automatic. And then once we have that information, then it's taking a look at how do we take that next leap. We have our first collaborative robot in place. We're starting to look at some other cobots for the organization to say, how can we do this to, number one, increase our efficiency, lower our cost. So we're starting to look at that. And I think that has a benefit too, just from a overall safety standpoint. We're looking at the ergonomics of some of the aspects. If somebody's doing something for 8 hours, the ergonomics, risk could be a little higher. So those are areas that we kind of want to tackle and bring the technology in so we can start to do that. That will probably be a lot of design and custom work, but I think it's well worth it.
You too. Peter, you've been challenged through the years and all the different organizations you did to kind of put together the plan or the outline, the strategy or whatever it takes to get things done at a location. And just, if you could, any tricks or tips for organizations to, what do you focus on? How do you put this all together to get it to become a strategy that leads to an ROI that justifies to the owner or to other people like that to go ahead and do this?
Yeah, I think the proof of concept is something that we've done a lot of, where we proved it out in a specific area first to see if it's worth the investment. I think that's been key for us. We kind of focus on two different aspects: short term, and then what's our 3 kind of 5-year strategy. So if it's successful on a short term basis, how do we convert that? What's our roadmap to get to the 3 and 5 year period? A lot of our thoughts beforehand were kind of short term, 12 months to 18 months. And now we've got to start looking at that roadmap of, okay, what's 3 and 5 years down the road? How do we look? How do we operate? And I think for us is really proving out the technology, proving out the concepts, and showing a win, from whether it's a safety or quality and on-time delivery, working capital improvement. If we can do that and justify it, that's how we've been successful in getting our capital expenditures and a lot of other things that we've done. So it's really kind of spending the time to do your homework up front. And I think that's a lot of times that does take some extra work and collaboration internally and externally.
Peter, a lot of times you talked about IT and the organization's focus on that, but there's a lot of talk about OT, which is, the operations technology and how it relates to the systems within your organization, systems that drive. And how is your organization, what's the status on your OT systems, and what do you need to focus on regarding them?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, we just started really talking about that, I would say, in the last several months. It's actually now one of my goals and objectives for this fiscal year. We start our fiscal year in April. So we really need to start to kind of branch out and see what's available to us, not only internally through JM, but also externally, of how we do it. And I think that's how we're really going to learn, is to see what somebody else is doing and see how they've successfully done it and how we can do it. We don't want it's not invented here syndrome. We want to kind of, benchmark and steal shamelessly from other organizations of how they've been successful that way. Again, a lot of the stuff that we have is very, very manual. So, we're starting to bring outside firms in, consult with them. It's been via mostly Teams at this point to say, okay, here's our process. What can we do from a technology standpoint? What's out there? So that's been helpful. It's probably been a little slower than what we would have liked. So a lot of times you want the folks to come on site and actually see it. Seeing pictures or seeing videos just doesn't really lend itself to that. So I think once we can start to bring people on site, because we're still in kind of a people are still working from home, but most of the plant's operational. So I think once we can do that, that'll accelerate that a little bit, where people can come and see the actual process, get equipment manufacturers, get technology people to take a look at it and see, what would be the next step, what's available to us to really start to bridge the gap there.
You talked about him being in a 200-year-old organization. How do you manage change against all that tradition?
Yeah, that's a full-time job, Greg.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Yeah. So I think one of the things the pandemic taught us last year was change is going to happen, and JM as a whole has gone through a lot of transformation in all the different divisions. So I think the speed of change, companies realize that through the pandemic, we have to be a lot closer to our customer, a lot faster, a lot more adaptable, a lot more flexible. So the speed of change of what we saw last year, I think it's coming at us fast and furious. And for us as an organization, not having a ton of resources, being a smaller site, we have to be a jack of all trades, master of none, but we have to be able to absorb those changes, explain the why to people, and then implement them quickly. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. Folks don't like change, but I keep telling people here, it's we got a couple choices. We can decide to fight it and argue about it, or we can adapt it and move on to the next item, because there's going to be more change coming down the pike. And just even dealing with our customers, it's all been virtual audits or virtual conference calls. They haven't been on site, and I do think that is a miss, but in this environment, there's not much you can do about it. So I love having people, the customers, come on to the shop floor and see what we do, and show the pride of what we do and how we do it. We try to we're always trying to upgrade the different departments, new equipment, clean paint, keeping it 5S, keeping good housekeeping. So I think when customers come on site, they get they walk away with a very favorable impression. Really tough to do virtually. So I know we kind of look forward to the day when we can start to bring those folks back in. But it's definitely, change has been something that we saw a ton of last year, and for the most part, I think we did pretty well. We held up.
Peter, thank you for all of these insights, and just for the people out there watching us, can you provide us with some recommendations, some of your thoughts on how an organization such as yours, dealing with the manual processes, the data challenges, the culture of embedded culture, how do you deal with these transitions, and particularly how do you kind of get them leaning towards the technology changes of the future?
Well, after you're done crawling up in a ball from all the changes,
that's step one.
Step one is get your, I think it goes back to kind of the team concept, is get yourself, a few key members of your team together. Kind of go back to that proof of concept, which I talked about earlier, is identify an area you kind of want to tackle. Gather all the information, gather the data that you need, and start to take a look at, okay, what is it I want to measure? How do I want to measure? What is it I want to get out of it? And I think, one of the lessons learned for us last year was really spending more time explaining the why to people. Why are we doing this? We're not doing it to make your life miserable. We're doing it to implement change, to really help our customers, and bring in the customer focus. And I think that's extremely important. So, start off with that pilot project, that proof of concept, to see if it works. And then, you'll get a feel for things. And I think we went through 4 or 5 iterations of OEE formulas and how we wanted to tackle it, how we want it to look. So it's a matter of just kind of getting together and seeing what works, and constantly interacting with the folks on the team to say, how can we make this better? And then making it visual for people. I mean, it's as simple as we have green, yellow, red. If it's red, we know something happened. How do we fix it? Then you bring in your CADA cycle, your PDCA, and say, okay, let's identify the root cause, and let's identify how to fix this and move forward. So if it's green, don't worry about it. It's good to go. If it's yellow, okay, we have some risk here, so let's keep an eye on it. So we brought our dashboards down to that simple of a concept. So anybody who comes in can go to an area and determine very quickly how we're doing. Are we winning or losing? If they see it's all red and all the KPIs, they know that, yeah, we've got some issues that we got to resolve. But if it's all green, they know that, yeah, we're winning for the day, and our customers are going to be happy. So I think it goes back to kind of starting small, identifying that one area you want to target, and really looking at it. And the area we targeted was an area that was a growth area for us right before the pandemic hit. So we were seeing a lot of opportunities to get better in terms of our lead times, and everything else. So it came at the right time for us to tackle that and to see the improvements in that area, and that really helped us.
Peter, thank you so much today. We appreciate your taking the time and sharing with us your journey and what's happened in that whole process of moving from the manual processes to the new factories of the future kind of concept. So thanks very much and appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.